Yo, 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 baby pop. Hey, y'all. It's your favorite perky barista, Juanita Michelle, and we are here in downtown Dayton, and we are at the People's Coffee House, Third Perk. I am so honored today to have Mr. Curtis Symond here, y'all. Y'all don't know. This is one of my buddies, okay? I met him for the first time in our old coffee house, the very first coffee house at 46 West 5th Street. And I am so honored to have you today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Juanita. I appreciate it.
Thank you. But as you guys know, the purpose of the Broken Entrepreneur podcast, not to celebrate brokenness, but we really wanted to acknowledge that it exists in order so that we can bring about change. I'm discussing with other successful entrepreneurs their challenges and learn how they overcame. It is the overcomers who are able to impact those and share that knowledge so that we're not understanding and believing that we're all by ourselves, okay? You are not alone in your struggle, entrepreneur. So, without further ado, we're gonna get to it, y'all. So, I wanted to first, again, thank you for being here and really just let you know how much I respect your career.
Well, I appreciate that.
An amazing career. So we met through Miss Cummings, who I dearly love.
Sister-in-law,
Shout out
yes.
to Francine Cummings,
Yes.
who has been an active supporter at the coffee house with her beautiful art. You don't know, you got to come and see it. Okay?
Definitely got to do that. Definitely got to come see my sister's art. There's no question.
Yes. But you are also a Centralian.
Yes.
But you have such a wonderful career. And I'd love for you just to tell our viewers just a little bit about your relationship with BET. We all affectionately know BET. Can you tell us about how you were connected there?
Well, it started back in 79 when I got into the cable industry. And what happened was that I was fortunate to be able to come in and be the manager of the cable system in Xenia, Ohio. And I grew up in Wilberforce, Ohio, with a PE background. You know, I didn't do a day of marketing or anything else in college. I did nothing but education. My goal was coming out of school was to be an educator, like my mother, who taught for 40 years at Southern State University. But I was fortunate to able to run a cable system in my backyard. That started my career. Okay. I did 3 years of Continental Cablevision in Xenia, Ohio, and I left Xenia, Ohio. And me and my wife.
1 second. We're gonna let the.
Oh, I like that. You don't want the ambulances? That's real deal. Have it in the background. Have that in the background.
That light is hot, Gary. Sheesh. Okay. Xenia, Ohio.
Yes. So I was there for 3 years. And then me and my wife moved to Chicago. And I worked for ESPN for 8 years.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was in the area called affiliate marketing. So my job was to make sure and drive distribution for ESPN, and it was about going into the cable operators like here in Dayton, Ohio, and convince them that they should carry ESPN.
Imagine that being a struggle back then. When
it
you
was
think about what ESPN is.
Yeah, today. Exactly. It's grown into a complete monster. It's done very. And then after about 8 years, I was fortunate. I was in contact running into Bob Johnson, president of BET for many years. We were the only blacks at cable conferences and things like that. And he kept kind of giving me an edge about coming to work with him, but I never took it real seriously. And one day, out of the blue, he called me and said, you know, I'm looking for somebody to run all of my affiliate marketing nationally, but I know I can't afford you, Curtis. Just see if you can, see if you can find somebody for me. And I came home and talked it over with my wife, and I said to myself, why not me? Why not try it? You know, I'm 32 years old. You know, they have a chance to be executive vice president of marketing for BET. So I met with Bob, and we talked about it. And I had heard a lot of horror stories about how he ran his business and all this stuff. And I just told him, I said, look, if you're looking for the guy you can control, I'm not your guy. If you're looking for a guy that will get the job done for you, I'm your guy.
Okay.
And he said, no, I'm not gonna control you all. You come in and do what you need to do. I need to grow. And so in 1988, we moved to DC, me and my family, my wife, and at that time we had 2 kids. And that's where it started, 1988. Okay. And from there, it was a brand that no one knew about. when I got there in 88, no one in Black America really knew what BET was about. And I kept telling Bob, we have a problem because our brand is not well known in our own community. And so we worked very hard to begin to start driving that brand. The timing was also good because it was a time in the industry where the big markets like DC, LA, Chicago, Atlanta were beginning to be wired into the urban markets, which it wasn't before. So our positioning became better and better. And then we began to grow. And we went from 18 million to 30 million to 60 million, and it just grew into almost 100 million homes now.
Wow.
You know, and we became, you know, I always say, you know, I talk things like this, we became the Obama of the media business because Black America looked at BET as theirs.
Yeah,
you know, they looked at it as theirs because it was the only Black channel out there. So that's where the community related to, you know, everything we did.
Okay.
And I give, you know, Bob and the rest of my other counterparts that were with me the honor because we really did a lot of the programming that you're seeing now on different networks. It was just, we were early. And the advertising community just didn't want to support us because they were used to us doing music videos. And they were like, why are you trying to do anything? Why are you trying to do soap operas? Why are you trying to stay with music videos? That's your culture. Okay. And we were trying to educate people on, no, it's not. There's more that should be available to our community. But we couldn't really, you know, break that iceberg.
Right.
You know, and so we all grew up into the BET world, until it got to where it got very sloppy on the videos. Videos became a point where it wasn't just about the artists anymore. It was about the record labels making money off the artists. Yes. And that's where it became sad because a lot of the artists built into it. And I think that's what started to begin to push BET sideways because people saw it a different way. Instead of educating our community with some histories, some, you know, lifestyle programming, stuff that we could relate to and need to hear about, we weren't doing that.
Right.
And so in 2001, I knew it was time for me to go, and then I decided to step aside. Okay. And then people have been riding me for the longest about, you know, the entrepreneur world. Why you keep making money for other people? Why aren't you doing your own thing? And finally, you know, I was scared. You know, number one, because the word entrepreneur is hard. You know, it's very, very hard.
Absolutely,
you know, it is. To your point earlier, number one, I call it the grind because you got to know how to grind in the right way. A lot of people think the grind is a certain way, but if you don't do certain things, you're not going to get there. Right. And the problem that our community faces every day, night and day, is getting capital. If you can't get capital, you can't move. It's true. You know, and that's the big part about our community that, you know, we have people with thousands of great ideas, but how do you get the money to drive it? Right. And that's where we get stuck. Right. And then before you know it, you know, you put so much blood, sweat, and tears in it, but you haven't moved the needle, and you just say, finally, I can't do it no more. I got to go back to corporate America. I got to find something. I'm getting that check every 2 weeks because this is too tough. Oh, yeah. And that's the struggle out there, I think, in our community.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. And, you know, you have the ability to get to a certain point. Yeah. And I remember my journey. So when we started in 2015, well, I'm going to go back to 2013. Mm-hmm. In my head, if I had $50,000, I could open up a little coffee house. Right. This was before any homework was done, any business plan was written. So when I did that, I had that thought in my head. I started going to trade shows because now I have to figure out how we're going to do this. Exactly. The first trade show I went to, a gentleman, he came up to me. He's like, so how much money are you going to invest? And I was so proudly, well, I have $50,000. And he said, well, you're going to go to the bank for the rest? He said, because you're going to need $200,000 to open up your little coffee house. Right. And I looked at him like, $200,000. Okay. Right. For my little coffee. I'm just making coffee. Right. Okay. But I immediately went home after that show and I approached one of our lending institutions here. I'm not going to say its name. So I approached that institution and I asked them, is this a project that you would fund? Mm-hmm. And the answer to me was in 2013, September 2013, Yes, I was a full-time college professor. I had been in education for, at that time, a little over 10 years. And I had capital, I had credit, I had some collateral. Yes, this is what we would stand behind. But at the end of the day, and one of the questions I asked was, I said, I have some student debt. Will my student debt prevent me from having a commercial loan? And the answer was no. Because my student debt, it's not bad debt, because I have 2 master's degrees and I'm just that shy from a PhD. So I have student debt. And at the end of the day, when it boiled down to it, in February of 2015, I was denied because of my student debt. But at that point, we were ready to launch. And it was either stop or lose the $60,000 that we already put into the project. So long story short, I kept going. I kept going. And it was always we're trying to keep up. And even with a moderate start, and it makes me feel proud at one point, because we had a moderate beginning. And
which is good.
And we were doing okay. We did not have a losing year until 2022.
And that was part of the pandemic?
It was pandemic. My mom passed January of 2022. And so that was a part of our whole, decline, because I wasn't doing all those things that we talked about earlier. I wasn't pursuing a business. I wasn't marketing my company. I wasn't doing all that work that I was traditionally doing to keep everything going, because you can never do enough. The marketing machine never stops.
No question.
It never stops.
No question.
So, so that's why I understand what you're saying about that capital, because I feel like if I had all of the capital that I needed in the beginning, I probably wouldn't even know how to operate my coffee house. I would have been too comfortable.
You're right. You could hire other people to do it.
Absolutely.
All you got to do is show up.
Absolutely. But because I didn't have the capital that I needed, I had to learn how to do every piece of this business. Whether anyone's here or not, I'm able to run it.
Which is good. That's the way you want to be. You want to be in that kind of mentality, that you want to learn how to do everything in your shop. From making the coffee to paying the bills to how to make the change to how to fix this, fix that.
Oh yeah.
It's just part of the game that is part of driving the business. If you want to be successful.
Absolutely.
You're definitely on that. And it's tough because there's no real, I would say anyone who walks into any business has a plan, but the plan gets juggled a lot of different ways. You might come in with a little bit of capital, so now you got to do it this way. You might have a little bit more capital, so now you want it this way. So it's a real interesting kind of puzzle that you play in the business, and try to, keep your business alive.
Yes.
The problem I think in our community, me and my wife ran a gymnasium complex, is that we built it from the ground up. And she basically ran it because I was trying to run the Washington Mystics at the same time. Is that we take a lot of stuff for granted. To your point when you were telling me about when you first opened up here, you had like 5 or 10 people in here. Think about 65,000 square feet where you got 2 people sitting in the gym.
Oh, that's a thing.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking Friday nights we should have this thing really bubbling. I come in from running a professional basketball team, come in the gym, and I'm looking around the gym. There's 2 people in the gym. I'm like, oh, how are we making money doing that? And I'm burning lights every day, 65,000 square feet. And that was probably the biggest education of an entrepreneur that we learned. And like I said, my wife really learned it more because she was really running the business. I was coming in on the standby, even though it was my dream. And that's why I felt bad about it, because it was my dream. I put her in a seat that she didn't really need to be, and that wasn't what she bought in with, but she did a hell of a job keeping it going. And we did it for 5 years, and we hustled for 5 years. And I think the other thing that you learn also as an entrepreneur is picking the right people to work with you. That's
Absolutely.
probably the biggest thing you overlook, and when we were doing our gym together, that was a big, big drop for us because our general manager wasn't the kind of general manager who really knew how to grind. He was, to your point, he was satisfied because he got a check every 2 weeks.
And that,
and that doesn't work. And it was like nothing was in it for him, in his mind,
Well, when you are an entrepreneur and you are running a small business, I'm finding that some of your best employees are those who have an entrepreneur's mindset.
Oh, no question.
Those who understand that if I don't make sales,
right,
where am I getting paid?
Bottom line.
Like, you really have to know. And if you're comfortable with sitting down,
right,
that means we're not making any money.
Bottom line.
And that cannot be your comfort level because there has to be some insecurity in that.
Well, you're in a particularly interesting business because I think your business is really catered around service.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Me and my wife were at a breakfast the other day at First Watch in D.C., in Virginia rather, and we had this waiter that I thought was one of the best waiters I've ever seen in years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this gentleman came up, took our order. He came back 2 or 3 times to check up on us. Mm-hmm. Food all right, you all right, everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, my wife talked to his manager, gave him an outstanding appraisal of like, this is how you do it.
Yes.
And I think that, when you have your shop here, people tend to forget the little thing. That's the big thing is service.
Well,
it's service.
And it's funny you say that because the young lady who works here, her name is Erica.
Mm-hmm.
She's here for the most part. If you come in early morning, Monday through Friday, you're going to see Erica.
Right.
Now, if you come in here once or twice, the third time that you come in, by the time you get to the register, she says, "Are you going to have the so-and-so?"
Yeah, that's what you want.
Rice, oat milk. She knows your order.
Yeah, that's to me. I've always told people, and I've been a regular restaurant, it's like, if you know my business,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm taking care of you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's what I call the service side of it.
And that is, and she gets that part.
Right.
Like, she has that, and she's so valuable because she knows our customers.
Sheila Johnson, Bob's wife, bought the Mystics in 2005, and my wife Pat and another couple, Jeff Lee and his wife Tina, we used to take her out to dinner all the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
one night out the blue, she stops me after everybody had gone out, getting the cars and everything. She said, "Curtis, what do you think about Washington Mystics?" And I'm a basketball nut, so I was like, "Oh yeah, I know about them, WNBA, right?" She said, "Yes, I'm thinking about buying the Washington Mystics." I said, "What?" I said, "Tell you what, here's what I like to do. Let me be a part of that." Now, I had no clue she was going to make this move of making me president. Because my background marketing, so I was expecting, hey, why don't you come in and do some marketing stuff and blah, blah, blah. And about 2 weeks later, she called me and she says, "I need to speak to you. I want you to be the president of the Mystics."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Sheila, I've never run a professional basketball team. I don't know what you're talking about here." She said, I know you can do it. Don't worry about it. So she has me meet with a guy with the MBA. And then I met with Ted Leonsis, who was still there, the owner.
Okay.
And, next thing I know, I'm president of the Mystics.
Oh, wow.
And it was a great run. It was a great two-year run, but it came at a tough time because that's the same time we were launching our gym. And I was trying to do both of them, full time in the summertime was the peak of their work. Mm-hmm. And it was really a bad move on my part at the end of the day because I should have been concentrated on what was mine. Mm-hmm. And I drifted off and said, I put my wife Pat in a situation. Oh, she can run it. And I'll come in later on in the evening and help out. Well, it was tough because there was a lot of things it took into building our business.
Yes.
And, it wasn't on her, it was on me. And I let her down by not paying more attention to it. I was too focused on, let me make sure that the Mystics get this, get that, get this. And we lost a lot of steam in 2 years. Mm. And when I finally left the Mystics after 2 years, we began to start picking up the steam, but we had built a hole. And that was during the bank times when, banks were coming at your throat if you got too far behind.
Yeah.
And so, that happened to us. And, but we, like I said, we had a great run. Great learning experience. And, the goal was in the area was to try to help young kids get in college and be able to play basketball. And we were able to accomplish a lot of that over the years.
That's
you know, so I was proud of us for that. You know, at the end of the day, life is what it is. You move on.
Okay. So tell us about what are you working on right now?
Now I am the president of a streaming network called HBCU Go TV.
Okay.
And that is a network dedicated to historical Black colleges and universities.
Oh, wow.
And for almost 12 years, I started this idea back in 2011. And I was shopping and back to our point, you know, couldn't find money. I got a little bit here, a little bit there. I was able to keep it going, build a little, since I'm a streaming network, I was able to get some programming and keep it up, but I really wasn't able to, you know, do the things I needed to do, marketing and other stuff. So luckily for me, 2 years ago, Byron Allen, who is the biggest Black media mogul going right now, was at a Billboard Award, and a guy called me from LA who knew me and said, "Yo, man, Byron Allen just gave you a great endorsement at this award thing." I said, "What?"
Oh, really?
And then as soon as he said that, his right-hand person, who I've been knowing for years, called me and said, "I need to send you this video of Byron. He's talking about you." So it was late at night. She sent it to me like 10:30 Eastern time. And I was out. You know, I said, "I'll look at it in the morning." So she told me when the time block to look at it.
Okay.
So I flipped it on, and a lady interviewed him and says, tell me about this $20 billion suit you have against Comcast.
Oh, wow.
$20 billion.
$20 billion.
$20 billion. And he says, well, there was a friend of mine who was starting a HBCU sports network by the name of Curtis Symond, and they wouldn't give him a channel. And it pissed me off, and that's really why I'm coming after him. So I thought, you know, he was in the moment, you know, hey, a nice thing to say. So I shot him a note saying, "Hey, Byron, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you saying some words to put me out there, blah, blah, blah." And then about 3 or 4 months later, he's on the Breakfast Club out of Atlanta. And he asked him the same question. He answered the same way. I picked up the phone after that and said, ho, my man, you know, we need to talk.
Oh, wow.
So we got on the phone together, and he said, "Well, Curtis, what do you need?" I said, "Well, I need somebody to invest in my network."
Okay.
He said, "Well, let me get through this suit and see what I get, and let me get back to you." So that went on for about 5 or 6 more months. Okay. And he didn't get any money out of it, but he got a great distribution package out of it.
Okay.
So I called him back and said, "Hey, you know, how can we work together?" And he said, "Look, I don't invest, I buy." I said, "What?" He said, "I buy." I said, "So you're going to buy my network?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Put together a proposal, get it back to me, and let's look at it." And so in October of 2021, rather, he bought my network.
Really?
Yep. And
wow.
And I'm still the president of the network, but he owns it.
Wow.
And we've been making some good strides since he took over.
Okay.
You know, it's been major strides. We last year signed it. His goal is that he wants to control Black college sports. So we're dealing now with the 4 major conferences. We just did a 10-year deal last year with the SWAC. We finished up a deal with CIAA. We got a deal going with SIAC, and then we're talking to MEAC starting in January. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So September 2nd, whoever's cluing in, we have Central State's first game at the Chicago Football Classic in Chicago at Soldier Field. Central State against Mississippi Valley State.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yay. Yeah. I was like, yay, that is great. I know that feels amazing for you.
It's good that, number one, as an alumni of Central State, it's nice to have my school as my first game in my second year.
Yes.
You know, that, and you know, living in Chicago for 8 years, it's nice to be able to come back to Soldier Field now and be able to telecast a game from Soldier Field.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we're excited as a network. Very excited as a network.
Now, as the president, like, what does that look like for you? So you've had VP, BET. You were the president for the Mystics. Now you're the president of your cable streaming service that you created, and now you're the president. What does that look like? What do you What do you do and how are you driving it?
Well, I mean, I'm the visionary. I'm still the visionary of the network, and my job is to continue to bring. When you have a network, the thing that's out there today is content. You got to create content, and there's like many people in the circle. HBCUs now have a buzz going. And unfortunately, George Floyd was the creator of it. His death really made the white community say, "Well, wait a minute, we need to be doing more in the black community." So now more and more people are seeing what HBCUs have been doing. They didn't recognize it 10, 15 years back. Now all of a sudden it's got a big buzz out there.
Right.
And more people and companies are saying, I need to get involved with this community. So we are seeing it on a real deal from an advertising, from a philanthropy side, creative side. You're seeing all of that grow. Mm-hmm. Not fast, but grow.
How do you think and I'm not a political person, but how do you believe the affirmative action ruling is going to lend into HBCUs?
I think what it's going to do is push more African Americans to HBCUs because they're not going to be able to get into the big schools that they once were able to because of this.
Yes.
I still think that there's room for more and more HBCU students that can really, in my mind, contribute in a major way to the growth of HBCU schools.
Absolutely.
I think the big thing, if you keep reading lately, there was a young lady who had a 4.3 or 4.2 the other day. Every white college was coming after her. She ended up going to Tuskegee.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Because the one thing that HBCUs do, me and my wife are two of it. It just builds your morale. It builds your spirit. It builds being around your people. It builds you in something that you understand who you are.
Oh, absolutely.
I think too many people go to PWIs and they think that, I'm going to Dayton, I'm going to Maryland, I'm going to Georgetown. That's where you end up thinking you could create yourself. No. If you are smart, you go to an HBCU because of what it creates for you.
Yes.
And then it's about building on top of that. Yes. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught and lost in their thinking because they think if I go to a PWI, I'm automatic. When there's nobody automatic. I tell people all the time, I'm a PE major, and I've grown in this industry as a PE major, because it's because I put my blood, sweat, and tears into driving what I thought was needed in the business.
Yes.
And if you believe in yourself, you create yourself, you drive yourself, that's really the mecca that you have to steer. It's like sitting in a car and you try to figure out, do I turn right or to the left? No, go straight. So if you go straight down the road, the road don't veer. Go straight down the road.
Just go straight.
Right. But a lot of people veer. They veer. And when they veer, they don't think they're lost, but they are lost.
Yeah.
But if you go straight, hey, maybe you can follow that path.
Yeah.
And drive yourself into that door.
And that's the other piece that's so magical about an HBCU, because it is really an experience that it is wrapping arms around you, because you do have that professor that will put you in check, and you will not get that at most PWIs.
You're right.
That professor who sees something in you, who may suggest, hey, little girl, why don't you try economics? Because I had a professor suggest that I go into economics. And she just kind of said, you're good at math. You understand numbers.
Right.
Why not do this?
Right.
But I actually graduated from a PWI. I started at Central, 3 wonderful years, and I left the area and finished somewhere else. But you never get that experience again anywhere else. And I'm thankful that I had it.
Well, I think you said the magic word, and that's what we're trying to create around this HBCU Go channel is the experience. Because a lot of people don't understand the experience.
Absolutely.
If you go to a young man or woman of color now at a high school and say, hey, have you thought about HBCU? Oh, no. But take that person out to some street of homecoming, and they see that environment. They see that entertainment. They see the life of the party. They see everything around it, that environment that they had just reading a piece of paper about Central State. It's a whole different world.
Oh yeah.
And that's the real, that's the thing.
It's very impressive.
Very. Across the board.
Because you have the people who just converge on the campus for a love for Central State. And for you to understand their success but they're coming back to the college. And it is a great feeling. I remember being on campus my freshman year and homecoming came. We weren't prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it was, you can't move.
Yep.
And even at that point, that was in 89, it's nothing like what you see today.
No question.
I mean, homecoming is just, so for me here in my business, that's my Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that during that weekend that we're going to get so much love from alumni who are just pouring into the area.
Right.
So I respect that weekend.
Right.
For an economic standpoint, because you have all the alumni, and I don't even know if Dayton, the city of Dayton, or Xenia, recognizes what comes into.
No, they've never been ready for it. You know, I mean, you know, when you look at Dayton and Xenia, you look around the country. I've been in several. We live in D.C. I've been to Howard's homecomings. No one's ever prepared for it. Mm-hmm. They're not prepared for that role of people coming in of color.
Yes.
They're never prepared. You know, the hotel, the jam, you know, they can't handle enough of the people, you know, because they got lines out the door, people trying to check in, you know, that kind of thing. So they're never prepared.
Right.
You know, for a large audience. And we come in groves. You know, we're coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And spending money. And we're spending money.
Yes. And it has to be documented. The statistical data, like I believe, like the statistics, you can't hide from them.
Well.
And when we talk about that jump in revenue, you know, you have to respect that. As a city, you have to respect that and look forward to it every year.
Well, you gotta look at things like, I tell you, I was involved years ago with the Circle City Classic in Indianapolis.
Okay.
A buddy of mine who's passed away now was the chairman of it, Reverend Charles Williams. And what he built in Indianapolis during that weekend was phenomenal. I mean, you had more people of color coming into Indianapolis for a black college football game.
Yes.
For a black college football game. And I mean, they beat up the hotels, the eateries. They couldn't handle it.
Right.
You know, you're talking about 65,000 in the stadium and another 25 standing outside.
Yes.
You know, and to your point, I will never forget a presentation he did one time where he showed the city of Indianapolis that they were driving more revenue. They were right this close to the Indianapolis 500.
Really?
That's the kind of revenue that was being driven during that weekend.
Wow.
And the city couldn't believe it. Mm. And because once they kind of recognized it, they opened more doors because they saw the opportunity of the business that was being ran and the dollars that were coming through the city because of his efforts.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
You know, that's at the end of the day. I mean, we will gravitate to a destination.
We will.
Bottom line. You know, you look at Mardi Gras, gravitate.
Yeah.
You know, you look at other things now, you know, the Essence Festival, gravitate. You know, I mean, that's just how it is.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, that's part of who we are and what we'll be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that I'm just curious is that, are you ever gonna stop?
Oh yeah. I told my wife, I'm done. I've been doing two things and been driving her crazy. One is basketball. I coach high school basketball on the side. And
okay.
This year is my last year. Okay. I've told her this year is my last year. And then job wise, I have probably 2 more years left on the job scene.
Really?
2, maybe 3. I have to talk to her about it. Maybe 3, but you know, no more than 3, and I'm done. I mean, I've had my circle. It's her time now to enjoy life. It's her time for me to spend better quality time with her.
Yes.
And I owe it to her.
Oh, that's encouraging.
Yeah, I owe it to her.
And she's such a beautiful
She's a wonderful woman. She's a wonderful woman.
Yes.
She's a wonderful woman. She makes my day every day. She makes my day every day. And I love her a lot.
Oh, wow. Goals, y'all. Goals. So before we wrap things up, is there anything that you would suggest or advise our young entrepreneurs, myself, on what we can do or a challenge? Like, how do you face your challenges? How do you get over?
Well, that's the tough part. The only thing I can tell you is you have to believe.
Yeah.
You have to believe. My wife's sitting over here listening to us, we were on push. She was constantly in my ear, Simon, you need to get this up. This ain't working. You need to get a job. Okay. We got to start doing something else. And I kept telling you, it's going to work. It's going to work. And I kept believing in myself that I could make it work. And it's just, I think the story of a life is, somewhere, somehow you get blessed.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate in my go round to be blessed. I mean, people call me every day and say, how did you do this thing with Byron? I said, look, I don't know how it happened. It just happened.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing. And I'm thank God every day that, it came around the right time and I'm still, able to see the flowers, as it is right now and enjoy life.
Yes.
And say, hey, I'm happy the way it is. So I would just say my encouraging words for anybody out there who's listening is that live your dream.
Yes.
Don't let anybody tell you can't. And I think one of the encouraging words, the great thing I read was a story on Ted Turner. And I knew Ted from my days in the industry. And he said something in a book that I read that you never give up on the best part of life. So live your dream to the fullest.
Okay.
And that was kind of my encouraging thing to say, I'm going to keep grinding, see what happens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is